Hi, I'm Rick Reynolds, founder and president of Affair Recovery, and this is part 3 of our series on shame. Over the past 2 weeks, we've talked about shame resulting from infidelity, and for our purpose, the definition we've used is that shame is the deep sense that you're unacceptable because of something you did, something done to you, or something associated with you, and you feel exposed and humiliated. This week I want to explore things that you can do to overcome that sense of feeling unacceptable. How do you regain self-respect? How do you regain self-confidence? How do you hold your head up high and shoulders back once again? First, I'd recommend that you remind yourself you're not alone. You're not the only one. Infidelity makes you feel really isolated and alone. But sadly, you're not. Just remembering that reality that there are millions of others, in some ways, can give you comfort. I witness this effect all the time at EMS weekend. People have felt isolated, they feel alone, and suddenly they're in a room of other people who are just like them. And all of a sudden, they begin to feel normal, and it's not something that just happened to them, it's a much larger event. And as that occurs, the shame slowly begins to melt away. If 30 to 60% of marriages have individuals who admit that they've cheated, you're really not the only one. And somehow knowing that it's a bigger deal allows you to take it in some ways not so personally. I'm not trying to minimize it, but you do have to learn to understand this happens to people all the time, and somehow that grander perspective can begin to lift the shame. Second, I would recommend that you act like someone you would actually respect. Leslie Hardy, one of the therapists that works for Affair Recovery, talks about channeling your inner Jackie O, that you want to act with class, because if you respond with class, in many ways, you'll feel more classy. When in public, stand up straight, shoulders back, head up. Simply changing your posture changes the way you look at the world, but it also changes how the world looks at you. If you feel burdened down with that shame and you've got humped shoulders, it just kind of makes you feel less than. Believe it or not, posture is one simple thing you can do. Use this pain as a catalyst to become a better person. Look at yourself and go, okay, I didn't cause this, but I do know that may not have been the best I can do. I want to become somebody again that I can respect. I want to grow through this. And don't surrender your sense of worth or your safety to your mate. I think a lot of times there's almost like this strange codependency that can almost happen where how their mate does in recovery or what their mate does in recovery kind of determines how they get to feel. And that's called an external locus of control. The last thing you want is to surrender your ability to feel okay about yourself to someone else and how they're responding one way or the other. So take responsibility for doing what helps you to feel better about yourself. Third, you need to silence your own inner critic. Put an end to that negative voice that's continually criticizing you up in your head, telling you that you were fat or you were ugly, or you didn't do this, or you should have done this more. That inner critic is not your friend. In fact, I would highly recommend when you hear that negative accusing voice, give it a name. Call it an ogre, or it's a bully, or it's the internal whatever. And when you hear it, and it's going off, just kind of roll your eyes and go, oh my God, there it is again. And tell it to shut up. And then immediately shift your focus to something else. You can choose what channel that you're going to tune into. And you don't have to give that part of you airtime. Look at things that you're still grateful for. Just being able to find beauty in the midst of the chaos in many ways is going to help you feel proud of yourself that you could do something different. Fourth, I'd quit blaming yourself for somebody else's actions. If people cheated on Jennifer Aniston or Halle Berry or Christy Brinkley, who do you think the fool is? If someone cheats on Miss America, who's the fool? It's not them, it's the person with them. I don't think you can ever be good enough. Years ago, I remember a group that Leslie was leading, and a lady in that group was complaining about all the triggers and all the beautiful women and how she couldn't even hardly go in public because of those women. And all the ladies in the group were staring at her, and in all honesty, this woman had probably had every type of plastic surgery known to mankind. She was absolutely, made over. She was beautiful. And after she finished complaining about all the beautiful women and the triggers, the other women in the group looked at her and said, "Honey, you are the trigger. What do you mean, all these other triggers?" Well, it's really not going to be about you being good enough. That's not what infidelity's about. Quit blaming yourself for what they did. Obviously, there may be things you could have done better in the relationship. It's not necessarily all your fault. But people do really crazy things. The majority of the time, infidelity occurs because someone makes some really bad choices when there's kind of a ripe time, whatever's something, they're vulnerable, and opportunity was there. Fifth, script the story you tell about what happened as that of a hero, not a grievance story, not that of a victim. I think the way we talk about it oftentimes keeps us in the shame. And we talk about what's been done to us, which leaves us then with this grievance story where we feel like a victim, where we have resentment, where we feel bitter. But believe it or not, begin to think, what are the amazing things that you've done through this story? What I would suggest is you script a story where as you tell yourself the story, as you tell others the story, you can sit there and go, man, this person did this, or this happened to me, and let me tell you how I was able to overcome that, how I was able to grow from that, how all of that made me a stronger person. It made me stronger, better, wiser, whatever. But begin to look at the story and how it's growing you, not telling a story of how it's defeated you, because you really want, again, to use this as a catalyst to become something more. Sixth, I'd suggest have the courage to take a risk and work with others. Don't isolate. It's important to find other safe people to share how this has made you feel. It's not about blaming someone else for how you feel, because you get to decide how you're going to feel. So you blame less, but you certainly can, and because you can blame them, by the way, for what they did. I'm not making anything okay when somebody is screwed up. That's not okay. But don't blame them for how you feel. Take responsibility for that and say, they did this, that was wrong. However, it's made me feel this. I feel, and share it with safe people. Consider joining a group of others that are moving through this, such as Harboring Hope or Beyond Affairs Network. But get with others who are struggling with this. In terms of your own self, growth, go see a counselor, especially if you're dealing with trauma. But even if you're not dealing with trauma, just see a counselor and begin to say, okay, I want to grow. I want this to be a journey of self-discovery, a journey of, self-improvement, and see somebody. I want to learn self-compassion. Work with somebody who can help you along that path. And seventh, another thing you can do here is just simply help others. I think one of the things that I've witnessed through the years at Fair Recovery is that when your pain can have meaning and purpose, when you can see that it does something, it makes it feel like it's not this total loss, but it makes you begin to feel good about overcoming. Back to that, how do you see yourself? Do something that's honorable. I know the people that lead the Harboring Hope groups, the people that lead the EMS online groups, and the people that lead the Hope for Healing groups. That helping other people allows them to rise above the morass of what their life has been and to kind of come into a bigger sense of themselves as they give. And that brings life to them. There are lots of other ways, I'm sure, to improve self-esteem. But I just want you to know that this is a time where you can do things to help you. I know we talk about in our shame survey from 2015 that the one thing your mate can do if you've been betrayed to help you feel more honorable is simply working a good recovery program. But I also don't want you to place your sense of okayness on them and what they do. Instead, I want you to be able to take personal responsibility for your own recovery so that you can get your life back regardless of where they're at to healing.